there. I think the pavilion is wonderful, the seaside is very nice, and so on. Right, it is very nice, of course. But that's an example from a B2 Italian student. Okay, so the point of all this, I guess, is that there's so much going on, not just in terms of grammar, but the grammar and the intended meaning and so on. And that, you know, human readers are very subjective. Barry and I had just a quick chat about that, that computers can do a better job in a way. You know, it's hard to put a pin down the things that influence you, but the pragmatics is something that works almost at a subconscious level. Like, a lot of people wouldn't even be able to describe why it's wrong. And it's hard at the same time then to train a computer to find this, you know. So it just was something interesting that came out of that. Okay, let me go to first language errors. How am I doing on time? I'm going to start. Okay, great. I think we're good. No, I don't start. Yeah, people often ask me about, what about first language, you know? And that's a very valid question. So I'm going to look at two items. One is countable noun errors, and the other is modal verbs. And just take a look at those two. If you like, they're kind of flagship items, grammar items. You know, one more lexical and the other grammatical, and has a lexical dimension as well, obviously. So, looking at countability errors with nouns. For example, call me if you need more information. Okay? I'll give you some advices. These are all really ringing in your ear, aren't they? Giving you flashbacks. Okay. So, looking at across the nationalities, and these are normalized. You know, they're not. They might have been only 100 Romanians. You know what I mean? They're comparing like with like. I mean, the range there, say, in those that I displayed between Latin American Spanish and European Spanish. Latin American Spanish compared with Romanian, you have probably, it's about 80, it's about a 50% difference. So, I don't know, statistically, you could say there's possibly an effect first language there. But in a way, it's much more about level, I think. Okay. I think the first language might influence the form as well, the type of error that's being made. I'll just show you some more. Across all of the different languages, the whole corpus, these are in order of frequency. The top 20 offenders. So you can see the first 4, I guess, would account for a massive amount there. Informations, advices, equipments, and transports, and trainings, and homeworks, knowledges, researches, and furnitures, and works. That's the top 10. So then, just to break it down into different languages, then just a few different case studies. Italian students. Seem to be missing. I had done French here, but it's another presentation. It's actually on it is on the desktop. So Italian students, just memorize maybe the first 5 there: informations, advices, equipments, transports. Okay, information, advices, equipments, transport. Information, advices, equipments, transport. Okay, information, advices, equipment, transport for the first 4. Equipments is down 10. Okay, so it's the same corpus. So you're getting slightly different. Portuguese speakers. Slight variation. And the red are the top 4 from the Italians. I think the blue I don't think are mentioned. Right? The blue I don't think are mentioned at all by the Italians. You could do a whole cultural study on this, really. So you can see slight internal variation there when you look at the actual forms. Here are some examples. Dear Mrs. Harris, thank you for sending us further information about the Student Festival in Scotland, B2 learner. Nowadays, thanks to the revolution in transports, travelling has become easier. I can send you some advices, which can really help. When I was a child, I used to spend all the afternoon watching television, including cartoons and soap operas. Because of that, I didn't do my homeworks. Obviously not. Okay, and then you have more examples there with information from Portuguese learners and more again from Portuguese. You know about them already. But look at the across the the levels. Now this is just, I found this really interesting. Noun countability errors across levels. There's an exponential growth here in the error, but it's not. In a way, it's symptomatic of the growth in your repertoire. You know, if you only know a few words, you're going to get fewer of the nouns, countable nouns wrong. You know, so at A1 and A2, you have a low error rate because you have much fewer nouns. And as you go up to the C levels there, it's the point being that the error is relative to your repertoire, your vocabulary. However, where is noun countability taught? This is the thing. This is a really interesting one. It's not dealt with at C level. You don't find it for C level course books that they're looking at noun countability errors.
It would be very interesting to look at with that in the same practice an estimate of their overall vocabulary.
Yeah.
And to look at the errors as a percentage of the overall.
Yeah.
It seems to me that it maybe doesn't change very much.
No. Geraldine has worked on this one, and I've logged her results here. But yeah, she's done that. It is the case. It's really fascinating. Yeah. And yet it's taught at such a low level. You know, you teach your low-level student that the nouns are countable, either countable or uncountable, and then that's it. Take that one off. And yet the forms, when you look at the scripts, at the C-level scripts, it jumps out at you. Noun countability is jumping out all the time. So the most common errors with this just shows that at A1, the most common errors with uncountable nouns are homework, spreads, houseworks. Then at A2, there's a bit of a growth there, but we're still circling around the few. B1. I mean, the errors are indicative of the growth, the development in your work hour. B2, C1, and C2. There's a narrowing there, possibly because they found other ways of saying things, or because the error itself had C reduces. Now, in terms of what a grammar profile might look for this, so what are we hoping to get out of all this? Some sort of profile that at A1 you can say, we're looking at errors, but really we're being asked to talk about what students can do. It's very hard to switch off and say, oh, I want to see what they can do, you know. But in terms of what they can do, at A1 they can use some common uncountable nouns correctly. For example, information, money, time, with a limited range of determiners, because we looked at the patterns as well. We can give examples, and then we can give the most common errors, as I've just shown you. At A2, they can use an increasing range of common uncountable nouns correctly, with an increasing small range of items before the noun, like a lot, some, more important. And then we have examples, and then we have the typical errors. I'll jump up to C1, and we can say that they can use an increasing repertoire of uncountable nouns correctly with a greater range of items before the noun. So while the noun error is there is huge development in terms of what goes before it. You see all the different forms, and the error increases with the most common items and with determinants. So as Barry said, their noun, they know so many more nouns, but this common core of errors, it seems to just fossilize very early. And then we've got all the different, so that's one example of how we might present it. I value your feedback. Now I'm nearly there. Am I okay, time-wise? Yeah, okay. So just quickly on modal verbs then, similar thing, to look at the modal verbs in terms of the most frequent, will, can, would, top three there. I looked at, say, French speakers. So we had will, can, would. It's still will, can, would, but can and would are around the same. Looking at, so yeah, the curve is such, it's not radically different, you know, it's not like it's different forms, it's not going the other way. Most frequent errors with modal verbs, well, you know, you could tell me that very quickly. They get the tense wrong or they get the verb wrong. So it's to do with tense or meaning, you know, that they use the wrong verb form. Word order can also be a problem as well. And when we looked at, when we say compared in terms of the first language effect, say Italian versus French versus the whole of the corpus. Again, apart from maybe a small difference between French and Italian in terms of tense, there isn't, in terms of the curvature, it's still the same. You know, while there might be more French errors of tense in terms of modal verbs, slightly, it still goes, it's still tense, the order is still the same. Tense, wrong verb, word order, and so on. Okay, so there's just the difference. Finally, so what we're seeing is, obviously, we can find a pattern of students not being able to use something. I can't use it. I try to use it, but mostly get it wrong. And I use it and usually get it right. That's obviously the pattern of development. The conundrums for this project, well, there are many, but how to avoid circularity. That, for us, that's a huge issue. This circularity, if you use Cambridge exams, you're going to get Cambridge exam descriptors. Great, great, but that's what they are. It's not profile of English. And trying to push that idea to Cambridge at the moment. softly. But I think they are to be commended in making a start, in doing this, because it may get others to do the same. And some other testing organisations are linking into the project. So I think, you know, there may be a good ripple effect. And the effect of L1 on the earth is to be controlled in some way. How to represent individual learning paths, that's something Geraldine is particularly interested in. And you know, that it would be really interesting to take individual learner cases for students who've done most of the exams and to track their individual development, you know, to look at it horizontally, if you like, across the levels for an individual learner. And describe, well, yeah, are we describing when students know structure and we're not prescribing when they should be taught it? Well, as I say, we're interested in this idea that there's a lag between when things are taught and when students can do them. The example there on accountability, I mean, that may have some sort of formative influence for coursebook writers, that, you know, you need to recycle a lot of these grammar problems in your course books. It seems a simple thing to teach non-accountability at A2 and forget about it, but the error is really, really prevalent as you go up the levels, and that core repertoire of nouns keep coming back as errors. And this lag factor, yeah, that's what I've just been talking about, the lag between when you teach it and when they actually can do it. It varies according to structures, but we haven't yet come across a structure that is taught at this level and they know it by the next level or within that level. Okay? Like you would imagine if that teach X at this level and you test it, they should know it. They can do it, the majority can do it. That's maybe what you would think in a schematic sense, but that never seems to happen. Okay, so what's wrong? Okay, I'll stop there. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you very much. That was very interesting. Okay, so we're going to have about an hour's break for lunch now. Hopefully you're all hungry. We have some lovely sandwiches and wraps and other food, fruit in the room over there. We are going to continue with our day in an hour back in this room where we're going to start the open space technology session. Okay, so again, thank you very much, Anne. It was a pleasure having you here. Safe journey home. Thanks.